Hi, my name is Iona and I'm here to tell you a story. I heard about this mission trip to Peru and I was really excited about it, but I didn't think it was for me necessarily. It was a lot of money and I just didn't see that as something I could ever attain or I would ever be involved in. And then last year in about September, I was sitting in a friend's room and I got this voice that specifically told me what I needed to do and where I needed to go. I hadn't thought about it in 2 or 3 months, the trip to Peru, and I heard the Lord tell me I needed to paint and He would use that to bring His glory. I was a little bit confused because I hadn't done any artwork or any painting in about 2 years. So I was very nervous as how this would come about and what I needed to do. But I knew that I needed to trust because it was such a prominent word that I'd heard. So I sat down and I began to plan this exhibition. It was within about 2 hours. I had everything I needed to start. I knew how I wanted to do it. I knew how I wanted to sell the paintings. I knew why I was going to do it. As I got crazy confirmation that I needed to be going to Peru. Just total random things about Peru. And so I was so certain that this is what God was telling me and this is where I was being led. 2 days later, I ordered 3,000 Rand worth of canvases and maybe an equivalent in paints and paintbrushes and good quality things to work with. Then came the hunt for a place to exhibit. And this was quite intimidating because I didn't really have any contacts, but I was needing a space that wouldn't charge me much, that would fit what I was going for, the look, the feel. So I went hunting and I found a place that was so perfect for what I wanted. I contacted someone at Church and Main in Wynberg. They have a coffee shop, which is a beautiful setting with wood and concrete and everything that I was looking for in a space, it had. Anyway, so I contacted the person I needed to and he got back to me saying that I could use the venue free of charge, which was incredible because I didn't go to the church. I didn't have much connection to it at all. So the fact that he gave it to me free of charge was incredible. So once I had my venue, then I started to take steps on what I wanted to look like. But most importantly, I needed to start painting. I'd set the exhibition date for 2 months after I started. So that meant a lot of work. I generally do about 1 or 2 paintings in 2 months, and I set my goal to 20. So this in itself was basically unreachable, as I take a lot of time. My paintings are quite detailed, and I'm very, very specific at what I create. But I knew that it had to happen before December holidays. I knew it had to happen soon. And it was just another way of me giving up control. I knew if I was able to create this amount of artworks in such a small amount of time, then it must have been God, because I could not have done it on my own. The next 2 months were quite wild. Fortunately, I was in a space of my life that I only worked 4 hours in the evenings, so my entire mornings were just committed to doing these artworks. I did a total of 20 in the end, and each artwork was very specific. I did each of these works to display a characteristic of God. I wanted my exhibition to show who God was through the artworks. It was all for Him in the end. None of the money I would keep for myself. None of what I was doing was for myself, but it was to bring glory to God. So by the time I had done all 20 paintings, it was about 5 days before the exhibition needed to be up and running. I scrambled around, I called, I managed to organize enough easels, enough of everything I needed. And a big thing for me as well was how was I going to advertise? I just did 1 or 2 posts on Facebook. I didn't push it too much because up until this point, none of it had been out of my own efforts. Everything that had happened had been from God completely. So I didn't want to then start taking things into my own hands when it came to getting people to the event. The night of the event came, and I got about 100 people there. I say I got about 100, but it wasn't me. I barely did any advertising. And it was so incredible to see how this vision had come together, how something that had originally been for the sake of fundraising and to get funds to go to Peru turned into something so much more. It turned into an opportunity for people to see who God was through the gifts that He has given me, and through the stories I could tell about each and every artwork, why I did it, the things that God had spoken to me through painting the artworks. At the end of the night, I got together all of the bidding forms. It was a secret bid as well. No one knew what anyone else was bidding. This was another way of leaving the control up to God. I didn't want to put prices on my artwork, so I didn't want to set prices and be in control. I wanted God to be in control of the process. I wanted to know that each and every artwork that was sold was going to the right person, because that's who it was created for. So I collected the bidding forms at the end of the night, and I sat down and I went through them to figure out who had won what, who would get what artwork at the end of the day. And so I calculated how much I had received from the exhibition, and it came to only a couple $100 below, so a couple of $1,000 below what I needed to get to Peru. I had no doubt, though, that the rest would be provided. God had come through in such amazing ways. I raised about 30,000 Rand from my exhibition that night, and I know that is not something that I could have done on my own, as I had created all 20 artworks within the 2-month cutoff that I had. So I was now sitting there with most of my funds raised and a whole lot of faith that God was going to come through as He had done before. And over the next 3 months, I had anonymous donations come in, 5 in total, which completed the amount that I needed. I was completely dumbfounded at this. I didn't know how or who they had come from, but I knew that God had pulled through yet again. So I was very excited that I was going to Peru, that everything had come together. I then got a message saying that we had an opportunity on our day off to go to Machu Picchu. I was very excited about this, a bit wary because I was like, oh, I've just raised all my funds and now it's an extra chunk of money that I didn't have. But I knew that even though this was something that was purely to bring me joy, God would pull through. And He did. He provided the money for me in an amazing way. And now I can go to Peru. I can go to Machu Picchu for a day. And it's so crazy to me that even though going to Machu Picchu was something that was just for me, it was for me to explore and me to travel, God still cares about that. My mind is absolutely blown that even though Machu Picchu was something that was just for me, it was for me to travel, for me to explore, God still chose to give me the money to be able to do that. He still chose to bless me in that way, even though He didn't need to, even though it had nothing to do with reaching people, spreading the gospel. So I was very excited about that and about the fact that I can now go to Peru. I think the biggest lesson that I learned from this personally was that sometimes you have to step out in faith. Sometimes you have to do something which just doesn't make sense. You have to go spend 4,000 or 5,000 Rand on painting equipment that you don't even know you would ever get back, which seemed for me kind of contradictory. I'm trying to make money and then I'm going to go spend 5,000 Rand. But sometimes you have to do things that don't make sense. And God sees that and he comes through. Sometimes we believe that God is contained to our ideas and our standards and what we think he can do, but so often we need to step outside of that. We've got to have faith that he'll come through even when it doesn't necessarily make sense. When he says something to you, you've got to take it as word, as truth, and you've got to follow that, because once you do, the rewards are endless. You get to see things and experience things. I've experienced life over these last couple of months more than I ever have. I've experienced a closeness with God, a joy and a peace which I haven't felt before, because I chose to actively pursue what the Lord is telling me to do. I chose to take something which could be as simple as fundraising and turn it into a mission, turn it into something which I draw closer to God. At the end of the day, I now know that God will come through when I step out. That God is faithful to do as he says. He's not going to tell you that he's going to do something and then back away or not. Once you've heard the Lord speak, you can be confident in going forth and doing as he says, because he will come through and he will provide.